technology usually takes years to develop and to climb this curve. And then when it peaked, okay, and then it will basically fall and eventually reach a plateau. However, ChatGPT it's just remarkable because it shot up. I think in 1 week they have 1 million users subscribed. Okay, so they did not follow this curve at all. They basically went from here all the way up there. So what do we expect in 2 and 5 years? These things, and 5 to 10 years are operational causal AIs and so on and so forth. Lastly, maybe in 10 years, 10 more years, we could have artificial general intelligence. So where we are, recently, you could see this article, and what you could see is that ChatGPT passes some basic Turing tests. We all know what a Turing test is, so I'm not going to go through it. But what is really more surprising is that if you look at, ChatGPT, this is actually from OpenAI. And these are all the tests, different tests that it actually took. And these are the left-hand sides, the score. The blue ones are the GPT 3.5. The green ones are GPT 4.0, and the dark green one is GPT 4.0 with vision. And what you can see is this remarkable thing is that in the uniform bar examination for legal professionals and lawyers, it has reached a 90 percentile. Okay, it's better than 90% of the lawyers out there in answering the bar questions. For GRE verbal is 99%. It's better than 99% of the people taking GRE. LSAT, 88%. AP macroeconomics, almost 100%, and so on and so forth. And that's just remarkable. And what's worrying trend is that this trend will continue. Things will only get better. It's not going to get worse from here. So I don't know whether you're going to have a better, even more difficult test or, something else. But machine is actually doing quite good, or even better than many humans. So here's some of the things that you could do. You can see the prompt up there. It asks us for the sum of the average of daily meat consumption for Georgia and Western Asia. And what is interesting, that is only given a figure. So he has to figure out what Georgia's daily consumption of meat is, and so on and so forth. He's only asked 2 out of the 3, so he has to actually figure this out. And what is really interesting is that he actually did. He actually identified all the procedures and arrived an answer right here, which is pretty impressive. 149.46 gram. And then if you do something like this for visual test, you say, what is unusual about this image? Not to identify the objects, but what's unusual. And you can see the answer down there to say that, this is strange that you have a man actually doing ironing, and then on a moving taxi. And then what's really interesting is about this moving taxi, because he has some visual cue right here about, this scene is actually moving. So this is also quite impressive, but even more impressive is that, can you answer the question? The prompt is saying, answer the question 1A, think step by step. And the text is actually in French. And so what you can see is that he actually understood and translated that, and then used English to answer the question step by step on how to derive these answers. These are actually amazing tasks of generative AI. And this is not just ChatGPT. This is on video, audio, images, coding, essay, summary, and the list goes on and on and on. I'm going to just show you the landscape very quickly on text. And you could have marketing, you can have general writing, AI assist video right here, and also the landscape in image for generative AI, coding for generative AI, and speech and 3D generation and others. Okay, so these are all the companies. They are actually players in the generative AI field. For educator, I just want to share with you, these are some of the things that you can use. Synthesia, Originality AI to detect whether a piece of text is coming from AI or human. You can use Presentation.ai for your slides, Copilot for programming, Midjourney for images. I use Notion as my second brain. And then these are actually more research-oriented. AI research assistant, Chat PDF, for example, you can just dump a conference paper, and you could ask questions about that particular conference paper, and it has decent results. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it has good, decent results. AutoGPT is one of the latest amazing things that it acts as an agent. It goes out and actually retrieves answers on the web, okay, and until it has exhausted the search space. So what is the broader impact? I just want to share that people still do fear the spread of misinformation, the privacy of security issues. And we don't talk to people anymore. So the erosion of social skills, and also very unhealthy dependency on technology as much as we do on our mobile phone right now. And, as I share, garbage in, garbage out before, so that if you actually have biases built into your data, you will have output as biases. But nonetheless, I show you the good, I show you the bad, and then I want to say something about the disruption to the job market that people really fear. And one of the things, this is coming from a report from Goldman Sachs report. If generative AI delivers on its promised capability, the labor market could face significant disruption. And 18 of the jobs could be totally lost. 63% of the job could be complemented by AI. And then 300 million jobs could expose to automation. As you can see, there could be a total disruption in the workforce. And then what you can see is that we cannot just stay here. And why I'm talking about the generative AI in education is because the first one, we have to change the nature of our work. Well, the way that we work, we need to upskill and reskill. Okay, so again, when we have disruption to industries, we may have to make complementary industries so to keep people, having jobs and so on and so forth. We also need to be watch out for equity or equality and inclusion, because many years ago we talked about the digital divide, but now we talk about the AI divide, and that's actually we need to have policies and in place so that we could protect workers and our social environment. Lastly, is a societal shift. We need to also be very mindful about ethical AI policies and principles. How do we monitor? How do we actually ensure that the AI will be beneficial to humans, not to harm us? So who is at most at risk of being replaced by AI? Really are the professionals. If you look at this, the Goldman Sachs report, you will see that admin and HR people could be replaced by AI, followed by legal, and sorry to say, architects and engineers, scientists, and business finance. So what cannot be really replaced really are the highly skilled labor workers. Okay, so most of these technical things, professionals, in some ways can be replaced. Okay, so if you look at where it is going to replace, I hate to say it, Hong Kong will lead the place, as Hong Kong has a large manpower that are involved in HR and office workers. So Hong Kong could be affected the worst followed by Israel, Japan, and other countries, and so on and so forth. However, this is not all bad, because if you talk about the two sides of a coin, by reducing the workforce, on the other hand, by introducing this generative AI tools, you will actually have better productivities, okay, in Hong Kong. Okay, so I don't want to skip this. So what does this mean for education? Because I talk about that job market will be disrupted by this technology. Therefore, we need to focus more on education so that people can be, can be better educated and have better knowledge in their workforce. Then I say that AI is to think with you and not for you. We're going to do this, so I'm going to just skip perhaps all this. I just want to share with you some of the possibility that it could do. Okay, so let me see now. I'm going to just share with you. As for professors, for example, we will reconsider the way that we reconsider the way that we will assess, okay, for assessment of our work. And the way that we do it, perhaps, is this. Typically, in the traditional way, our assessment are these things on the left. But the newer way, in the era of generative AI, we may have to do in-class writings, oral examination presentations, practical experiment, personal reflections, collaborative works not to prevent the use of generative AI, but to prevent people cheating by using the generative AI. So we need to be very, very careful about what can generative AI help us in terms of education, but not to the point that it is actually writing everything for us. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to skip this because I just want to perhaps introduce you to some of the last skills that we have. Okay, so I'm going to just I'm going to just do this. Okay, and oh yeah, this is actually coming up, so this is good. I'd like to share with you what generative AI could help. In Camingo from Khan Academy, amigo is basically a friend. In Spanish, is amigo. Amigo is friend. So Camigo is basically a friend or perhaps a facilitator or coach that could help you to learn. And the way that generative AI is capable of doing that is that instead of giving you answer, okay, generative AI can be used to prompt you for an answer. So this is almost like a reverse engineering of a prompt engineering. I know that we use ChatGPT, we need to have a prompt, right? But in here, Camigo actually, turned that around and would use prompt to guide the user to an answer. So for example, can you just tell me the answer? And the Camigo will say, no, it's important that you learn how to do this. And what do you do is multiply 2 by 2, 5 over 12. Well, they need the same denominator. No, that's a good thought. That's not totally right. But then it will go ahead and prompt this step by step, okay? And then what you can see is that coding too, even in codes, it will actually say, hey, you're not doing something right. The cloud is not moving correctly. To make the right cloud move as well, try adding a line of code inside the draw function by incrementing the right X. So this is the right way. So instead of just spewing out the proper, what you expected as answer, it actually prompts you, and it's sitting right there. The Socrates method is you ask question, you could ask question, it will tell you the answer, but it's the other way around now. I'm telling you that you need to do this, and in order to get the answer. So this is actually kind of intriguing. And the teachers, what is interesting is not only for students, but for teachers. you could actually use the ChatGPT for personal teaching assistant. For example, here is a prompt to say, hey, how about give me a good listen hook on this particular topic? How do I teach quicksort, for example? Give me a listen hook. And then you will say, hey, for example, for the Spanish-American War, you might say that, hey, why don't you start listening with a role play? Split the class into two groups. One group is Spaniards and one group is Americans. And tell me about their economic situation. Tell me the political situation, their society makeup during the Spanish-American War. Role play when you actually want to introduce topics. So it's a very powerful tool. And one of the things that we are doing at Chinese U is an AI interview system. Why? Because earlier we say that to do proper assessment, we might have to ask you oral questions to say, what is, explain to me, this topic that I have introduced in class. Now, by having this AI interview system, that we are able to actually interview people and collect their feedback and test it against our, answer perhaps, and then give scores to those to the user, and in this case, it could be the student. That's why we're trying to do this AI interview system, that it could rank people's, feedback, so that we can use it for assessment in the generative AI era. Okay, so I'm not going into too much detail. If you like it, I could get you more information. And here is AI served assessment platform, where if you give me a Moodle, export, or an OpenAI export, Open edX export, pack it together and send it to us, we'll be able to actually do analysis. We'll be able to tell you whether your video is okay, your content is okay, whether students are complaining, and what are they complaining about, who are the good students, what are they talking about in the discussion forum, and so on and so forth. So this project aims at analyzing Moodle and Open edX, courses here. Okay, so with that, where do we go from here? All I want to say then is this, okay? We're doing the same thing for students. We still want to actually transform students, okay? Not just filling their mind with knowledge, but to make sure that they have an open mind, but sharpening their creative skill. That's our ultimate goal. But we must adapt to our current knowledge. We must teach the student to express themselves, construct with critical thinking, and evaluate evidence, and so on and so forth. These are the critical thinking. Institutions could do this, okay? New programs and courses focus on using generative AI. We could have peer support and mentoring workshops or groups that are being formed for teachers as well as for students. We got to train our staffs, okay, to support students in deploying this generative AI technology. And also, we all must update our existing course with the help of, generative AI to make our courses more interesting, more lively, and so on and so forth. So lastly, I just want to say generative AI is here to stay. There's no doubt about it. We must move from a knowledge transfer model to just say, hey, you just got the knowledge. Your test only shows that you have obtained this knowledge, but we're not sure how you got this knowledge. From that to a process-oriented knowledge acquisition, okay? Use AI to think with you and not for you. And lastly, I really think that our educators' future in the teaching and learning for students is really quite bright and promising with this exciting tools that we have called generative AI. With that, that's it. Thank you.
Sorry, I was going to clap. I was
Yeah,
muted.
exactly. It's a fantastic,
Yeah.
Yeah,
sharing.
no, yeah, this is what I gave for hour long. I'm trying to shrink it down to 20 minutes. So sorry about
We
that.
did
I
well.
read,
We did well.
yeah, many things went very quickly. Sorry about that. Yes.
Okay, so we'll save the questioning after each, I guess, panelist presented. And those in the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat, or you can speak out later as well. Okay, Kestri, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead whenever you're ready. Upper right play. Yeah.
All right. So I'll be overlapping a little bit with Prof. Alkemi just now. All right. So I'm Kasturi Devi Varadan from University of Malaya. So today I would like to share some information regarding issues and challenges that we will be facing due to generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
Audible? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Okay then. Okay, so a little bit overview. So we all know that what is generative AI, but I would like to just highlight what is the difference between generative AI and traditional AI. You know, so when you're looking at generative AI, it's basically about learning, not just about learning from data, but it is creating new data. Unlike for traditional AI, it is basically learning from data, but it is trying to predict some new information, but it will not generate new information. It will process and create some data, and then it will report, and then it will analyze the data. But in generative AI, it's basically creating data. So a little bit on the here, there is a statistic information on months to reach 100 million users. I feel that this will be interesting for me to share. So if you look at ChatGPT in comparison with TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, and Uber, it only take 2 months to reach 100 million users. All right. Unlike Uber, it took 70 months, 45, 50, 55 months, and so on. So when we look at the in terms of reaching 1 million users for ChatGPT, it only took 5 days to reach 1 million users. So in terms of like the capacity or the technology in terms of reaching to the user, it is very significant compared to other tools or other technologies that are currently available to us. So within for an example, from April 2023 to June 2023 alone, there is 1.6 million visits to ChatGPT website itself. So we could see how much it attracts people to join or to know the technology or to use the technology. All right. So the next one is looking at the ChatGPT or generative AI in terms of the capabilities, right? Besides looking at the issues. So when we look at the capabilities of or generative AI, we know that it can actually create content. It can do translation. It can do text NLP capabilities. It has NLP capabilities like text classification, summarization, name entity recognition, and so on. So when it has got these huge capabilities, all right, so it can create content, and it also can create misinformation, because the content that is being generated has got no proper evaluation, whether it is the right content that is being generated, whether it is correct or not, whether there is an error in the content generation or not. There's not much tools or people to check on that. So it is delivering directly to the people. So first of all, distribution of harmful content is there. So when you look at here, with the rise of AI, social media platform could face perfect storm of misinformation. US election, this is going to be figure in terms of how they are going to differentiate between the right information and the wrong information. Okay, so another reason is unknown data source, because when generative AI making output, okay, giving content, it doesn't actually specify from where it managed to get the source. So we are unknown about the data source, and we are not sure whether to rely or not to rely. Besides that, fake narrative, the narrative that it actually creates, it could also be fake. So the impact, the other issues will be fake news. Okay, this I got it from the CNN business. This is quite popular news. Happened in May, whereby Pentagon, there is an explosion in Pentagon. So that is basically a fake news. And the strange thing about this fake news, right, is being created by verified Twitter account. So when a verified Twitter account created this kind of news, right, it actually caused chaos among people. And this particular news has caused a lot of impact, not only in terms of financial, in terms of social as well. So when you're looking at the financial impact, right, the Dow Jones index actually gone down by 80 points right after this particular news is being broadcasted in a social media platform. So, and also there are other countries that actually took this news as the correct news, and then they even telecast in their own news channel. And that has got created a lot of chaotic kind of information and chaos in terms of people. So this is the huge impact that we are seeing in terms of how fake news actually can actually impact us directly. Then when we look at the verified Twitter account, right, there's another confusion, because if you're looking at verified Twitter account, how come verified Twitter account can actually provide fake news? But previously, verified Twitter account are being gauged by manual processes, whereby they look at people are actually gauging that. But now it is just with $8, you can actually get a verified Twitter account. So that is also another reason why a verified Twitter account can be captured or used by many people to actually spread fake information as well as fake news. And then the third I would like to share with you, the issue is on plagiarism. Okay, so in a current context, when we are using Google or any kind of search engine for our research work, we are actually making reference, we are searching information. But in terms of ChatGPT or generative AI, it's basically creating content. So it raises a lot of issue in terms of ethics. Who generates the content? Is it the writer solely generating the content? Or what is the percentage of the content that is being posted or that is being published generated by a generative tool or a person? And it becomes harder to detect because of all the technological evolution that actually happening in generative AI. So this is also another news whereby Science Journal banned listing of ChatGPT as co-authors. So we don't have co-authors. We cannot actually cite any generative AI as our co-authors. And there are a lot of journals nowadays actually looking, getting this information. And when you submit a paper to a journal, it will ask whether did you use any kind of generative tool in order to create this manuscript. Declaration manuscripts or research works. All right. So the next thing that actually leads is about the shortcut learning. All right. So here, this one, I got it from a YouTube message that is being posted of a short video on ChatGPT. And this is one of the message. It says that I used this for my economy essay and I got an A. All right. And there is also a subsequent message that actually says that what are schools going to do is the essay homework assignment date is got date. So when we're looking at this, right, when even in education, as what Prof. Akan has said, it is very hard for us to detect. And then in terms of students doing their assignments and so on, how are we going to gauge that they did not actually engage any generative tool in building the content that they are submitting? So in University of Malaya, for example, our our exams have changed the way that we do. Like for example, if we have an open book exam, it has to be printed materials only. We will not allow any kind of assessing to any kind of generative tool for us to get the answers and so on. So this is one of the measures that we have taken in University of Malaya. All right, next is as what Prof. Akan has said in terms of job displacement. So there are 300 million jobs that could be affected by the latest wave. This is published in March 29, 2023. And IBM alone is going to pause 7,800 jobs with AI and Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg report. So in terms of job displacement, as we have to think about how we are going to upskill ourselves and how we are going to learn and unlearn what we know, right? So to be in this competitive world and to be on par with ChatGPT or ahead of generative AI. Okay, then the subsequent issues that I would like to share with you is bias. So bias is because these large language models are trained by data. So when the data is causing any biasness, so this will basically lead to inaccurate or inappropriate responses or results that is given by the system or by the generative AI itself. One of the experiment here is quite an interesting experiment that I would like to share with all of you. This question as creating a poem admiring Donald Trump has been posted in ChatGPT. And it says that I'm sorry, but as a generative AI language, I cannot generate inappropriate or biased content. But on the other hand, when I say this, create poem admiring Joe Biden, and then it gives me a poem on Joe Biden. So this basically shows how biased. So there is a significant biasness in terms of getting the responses from generative AI that we have currently. Okay, the next important issues or challenges that we are going to face is in terms of privacy violation. So because the data that the generative AI is collecting, it can be from different people, different organizations, and it can be a sensitive information about users. So this kind of sensitive, when you look at generative AI, for example, ChatGPT, you can actually upload any data. It will not restrict you from uploading sensitive data, like sensitive financial information or sensitive health records. No, it will just accept data. So when it's basically accepting everything that we give. So when it is accepting this kind of information, sensitive information, very privately, highly confidential information, then the question will be, will the data is protected, or can it be can it be abused? So definitely yes, it can actually lead to other harmful impact as well. So that could be one of the reasons, as some countries have actually taken a huge measure in banning certain generative AI. Like here, ChatGPT banned in Italy over privacy concern. This was in April. So there are some countries that actually ban. So I thought that when Italy banned it, so there are a lot of countries will come into picture and ban, but that doesn't happen. So in terms of us sharing the data is still there. And for the past 8 months, from November 2022 until now, I'm sure that this kind of generative AI, especially ChatGPT, would have collected huge amount of data from us without us knowing. Okay, and then more difficult for consumer to locate and request for removal of information. We will not be able to do so. And in terms of sensitive information disclosure, like here, Norwegian data privacy experts sounds alarm over generative AI in terms of privacy concern. All right, so next is ethics. So there are many ethical issues that actually exist. So one of it is deepfakes that I would like to share. So whereby dead bots can speak for you after death. Is that ethical or not? So can we imitate a person? We can to a certain extent, but we cannot actually say things that which is not being said by the person who is dead. Okay, so here there is another news whereby grieving boyfriend uses chatbot to emulate dead girlfriend's text. So in this will basically give a psychological kind of disorders, you know. So if this is going to be happening to more people, so it is going to create a snowball effect, and it will impact a huge population in terms of having virtual girlfriends and so on. Sorry. I'm sorry, there is some problem with.
And just a quick comment first, while we waiting for the technical fix. Actually, Italy has unbanned.
Yeah, so the last point that
April.
Yeah. All right. The last point that I would like to share is about hallucination, the information in hallucination that's happening with the generative AI. And also there are a lot of alarm and issues, or people have actually stated about the huge impact and warn the impact of generative AI towards the population, especially the young people who are not aware in terms of using, or in terms of the impact that is going to bring, for especially for example using or sharing the data and so on. So with that, I thank all of you, and I'm sorry for the problem with the slide just now. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So let me just share this quickly. So beginning of April, ChatGPT was banned in Italy, but by the end of April, it's accessible again. So basically, they're adjusting to EU. So temporary restricted dimension. And changing a new form of the EU users with the, I guess, certain data collection aspect. And then now they say they welcome the measures that the OpenAI is implementing, but they're calling for more compliance. So that's basically the world warming up or getting used to know about, I guess, generative AI. All right, just want to share that first. All right, sorry for interruption. Okay, Sipana, are you ready?
Yeah, yes. So as I mentioned, so I don't have specific slides on, discussing about the like Professor Irwin and Professor Kasturi have already mentioned about the limitations and what are the, the pitfalls of this generative AI. So basically my research interest is natural language processing, and I am in this field in the last 7-8 years. And before the introduction of this ChatGPT or these transformer models, we used to work on several, generative NLP techniques, like we are working on caption generation, like given an image, if we can generate the captions, and there we used to use this encoder decoder models, like those are not transformers, but encoding the images and then decoding into text. So I just would like to mention some of these, some of these use cases. Like I do consider that yes, generative AI is having its own pitfalls, but still there are some application domains where we can use, because we really need some AI assistant, because number of human expertise is very limited. And if we can somehow help with the use of AI, then maybe it will be good. So yes, so these are some, some old works, but maybe useful. So we worked on AI for mental health because, we started this research in the year, I think, 2018. So basically, somehow we are neglecting our mental health. And if you see the developing countries like India, so number of psychiatrists is very much limited. And often, if you are suffering from any mental illness, because of the stereotype of the society or some other issues, we do not want to consult any psychiatrist or any doctor. So the idea was that if we can develop a chatbot or a conversational agent, which can help the patients, which can simply motivate the patients. So, these conversational agents or the chatbots are kind of generative AI, which have to generate responses given the patient's question. So it has to first understand the patient's question and then have to generate the responses. So it is a very difficult task, considered to be one of the complex tasks of natural language processing. So, when we started doing research in this field, the basic problem was the data set, because there was no data set available for this kind of conversations where, the agent can simply generate some motivational conversation. So our target was not to replace the psychiatrist, because that was not possible. But we just want to develop a shoulder to cry on, because whenever we are suffering from some mental disorder, we want someone, some friend who can simply listen to our problem. So, data set was a big challenge, if you want to work in this niche areas like mental health or any like in this conversational agent, getting this kind of corpus is very difficult. But somehow, we identified some medical blocks where, in Western countries, these medical blocks are very popular. They used to register anonymously in these medical blocks, and they used to discuss about their medical problems in those blocks. So it took permission from those blocks, and then we collected data. And with the help of a psychiatrist, we clean the data, we annotate the data manually, and then we developed this encoder decoder based model for developing this kind of motivational chatbot. So this was one such work. And another interesting application of this conversational agent is in the, this kind of healthcare domain. So, we are also trying to develop some virtual doctors. So the idea is that when we are visiting a hospital, in a big hospital, there are many departments, and in each department, there is a senior doctor and there are many junior doctors. Like initially, the patient can mention the self-report, but the self-report is not sufficient. So based on the self-report, the receptionist can guide the patient to a particular department. And now in a department, there are some junior doctors who are responsible for more symptom investigation. And then they used to generate a report, and this report is given to the senior doctor for diagnosing the disease and also prescribing the medicines. So the idea is that if we can somehow, replace this junior doctor by AI assistant, so which will be called a virtual doctor, which will be doing the symptom investigation. So it's again a natural language generation only. So like it has to automatically ask the questions, like symptom investigation has to be done by this chatbot. And we also introduce the multimodality here, because often when the patients are mentioning about the symptoms, maybe the common people are not aware of the medical terms of the symptoms, but they can also show the sign of the symptom. Like I have mouth ulcer or the skin rash. Maybe the common people is not aware of these medical terms, but they can simply show the sign of the symptom. And this conversational agent should be able to identify the symptom name from the images also. So yeah, so basically with this kind of conversations, our virtual agent is automatically generating, like if the patient is saying, hi, I have been suffering from fever for a few days, and also something happened in my mouth, please see through this. Now from this image, it will automatically, there is an image identification module, which will automatically extract that this is the image of a mouth ulcer. Then it will again further ask some questions. Did you recently vomit? Yes, I vomited yesterday. Do you have eye pain? Yes, I am feeling so. Have you observed any skin rash in your body? Again, the patient is showing some image, and from this image, it is extracted that this is a skin rash. So finally, a report is generated. The patient suffers from the following symptoms: fever, mouth ulcer, vomiting, eye pain, skin rash. And also there is a disease classifier, which is trying to predict a disease, but this report will not be given to the patient. So this report will be given to the senior doctor. Senior doctor will verify the report, and then the prescriptions will be generated. So yes, so you know that in the field of NLP, as I mentioned earlier, also the one challenge is this data set, because in many domains the data sets are not available. So if for example here also this kind of multimodal conversations where symptoms are mentioned, that was not available. So we somehow created our own data set where these 20 symptoms are replaced by their signs, and the data is validated by doctor, and the conversations are also validated by the doctors. Yes, so so let me just yeah. So basically, we are in recent years we are working on this LLMs, the large language models, and their applications in for various NLP tasks. So I just would like to mention about some of my experiences that like some of the observations. So one thing is that somehow if you like compare the performance of this, the open source LLMs and the paid LLMs like GPT 3.5 or Chat GPT, which are paid, and some open source LLMs, there is a big performance gap. So as the problem complexity increases, these open source LLMs are not performing at par with the paid LLMs. So this is a concern for NLP research, because like for developing country like India, we cannot buy always this paid LLMs. We are relying on the open source LLMs, but there is a big performance gap between these two LLMs. Then hallucinations, as Professor Kasturi and also Professor Ewin mentioned, that hallucination is a problem. So we cannot use these LLMs for sophisticated tasks like this kind of healthcare domain or in legal. So where we need to have a precise information, there we cannot simply use the LLMs. We can use them for style transfer, like you want to paraphrase your text, then LLM is a very good option. Then or if you want to work on the summarization or content writing, LLMs are best. But for this kind of sophisticated tasks like healthcare or legal or in education, maybe LLMs are not. We need to develop some task specific LLMs. Then from my experience, as I also work on the Indian languages, so we are trying to develop this kind of conversational agents in the Indian language, especially in Hindi or code mix Hindi-English. So these LLMs are not performing good. So there are many studies available, like Microsoft also done such a study. So like when LLMs are tested on the English data, they are performing very good. But when those are tested on the low resource languages like Hindi or some other low resource languages, there is a big drop in the performance. So we really need to do something like maybe some fine tuning or some data, some instruction tuning we need to do on the LLMs to make them available for the Indian languages as well. Then as already my previous speakers have mentioned about the ethics. So like we really don't know where from this training data is coming. What are the sources of the training data? They have not revealed. This ChatGPT has never revealed the sources of their training data. So what exactly they are using for training, that we really don't know. Then copyright issues, especially in the deep fake. So they are generating, they are simply, somehow copying the patterns of different artists, and they're generating these deep images. And another important observation is that we really need to do something in the multimodal space. Like when we are considering the image and text both, the visual LLMs are not at par with the ChatGPT. Like this GPT 3.5 and ChatGPT are really doing great. in text processing. But when we are combining the text plus images, like for example, you have to generate the explanation of the memes. Like, memes are nowadays very popular, and we really need to understand whether a meme is hateful or it is a normal meme. We need to understand the meme first. So these VLMs are very much popular in generating the explanations for the memes, but somehow the performance of VLMs are not at par like our current LLMs like 3GPT 3.5 or the ChatGPT. Yes, and another important task is the knowledge updation. So because this ChatGPT's data and training data is based on up to September 2021. So now there are some advanced knowledge. So how can we update this ChatGPT, because fine-tuning ChatGPT will be very much time consuming. So we need to work on maybe some new research should come up on how to update the knowledge of this ChatGPT, and the knowledge conflict. So GPT 3.5 already assumed something from during the training process, and now there is an updation in the knowledge. So how it will act, so how this knowledge will be updated. So that is another challenge, and I think research should be like new research in the field of NLP or the generative AI should focus on these issues like this multilinguality, knowledge updation, and also developing something for the visual language models. Yes, so this is all from my side. Yes, so yeah, like if there will be any question, I can take that maybe after this.
Yeah, I'm muted again, sorry. Great, thank you, Rich. Let me just quickly mention something in response to what you mentioned. So you're talking about open source LLM versus paid LLM. So recently, actually just a few days ago, Facebook just released Llama 2, and it's open source AI. So I already asked my students to look into this. So you do have an open source LLM, but do you have the hardware? So that's the part that perhaps we have to see if we form a consortium of some sort, trying to share some resources. But in terms of the model, Facebook just upped the game. And the other thing, if you're interested, so Kaggle, we have a Kaggle competition hackathon. So there's just a new one called Bengali AI speech recognition. So perhaps the partner, you might be interested in this, or your students. Okay, that's it. So next, let's move to Pete.
Since I haven't prepared like beforehand, sorry about that. Gonna need to switch between multiple windows, but there are a lot of things
That's
that
okay.
I want to share here. First of all, recently we heard the term LLM a lot, right? And one thing that LLM is very good at is that it has something called emergent abilities. So it is ability that not existing before in a smaller variant of the language model. Typically, in a smaller one, traditionally what we do is we will try to fine-tune the language model for a downstream task, and then it will excel at that task, right? But the large language model is capable of the emergent abilities, and one of that is the few shot task, which means that you show it a few example. Sorry about that. Show it a few example, and then assuming that these tasks never exist before in a training set, it can still do it well and excel at those tasks. So that's why it's so popular, that there are a lot of the variant of the large language model now today. And people try to build on top of that kind of the model. So this one is a figure that proposed by Professor Andy Ng, which is very popular. And he suggests that in a traditional software, we usually spend a lot of time on the development phase. We have to think about how to design program, how to come up with a code, and then we'll spend a little bit more time try to debug and then improve upon it. But in the new era, for the machine learning based software, we spend very little time on the actual program itself since we offload most of the tasks to the LLM. And then we spend more time on the debugging and improvement. So most of the time that's spent here is to try to find a prompt or try to find a workflow that would work best for a specific case. And not only Professor Andrew that suggest this approach, but here proposed by Cohere, another AI startup. They also say that the layers of the development of the software is changing a little bit. So in the past, we have a cloud platform as our infrastructure layer. And then on top of that, we usually have application directly. But now we will have additional layer of the models. So this model, it could be default foundational model that available whether open source or commercial one. But some company might find that it's more beneficial to train and fine-tuning their own model. And all these model will work together to serve the users. So that is kind of like a new approach. As for the game, I believe that mainly there are two things that game can benefit from generative AIs. First one is for the design and development process. Another one is to include AI as a part of the game itself. For the game design and development process, there are a lot of things that it could be done. For example, ideation. You could use ChatGPT to help you come up with new ideas. You could use it for prototyping. So some of the concept you want to try to present to maybe the investors, you can try to use existing AI, where it's the text-based one or the image generation model. You can use it and then craft your prototype very quickly. Another thing is for the development and design process itself, you can use it for asset generation, whether it's 3D model, the content, the storyline, the quest, or anything. And another thing is game testing. So you can use the AI itself to play the game and then help you test the system. One of the AI that can do this is a system proposed by NVIDIA. It's called Voyager. So this one is a kind of a framework that the LLM can learn and get more and more abilities over time. And it can perform a lot of the tasks and achieve the achievement milestone in Minecraft. For example, it can learn by itself that it needs to mine a diamond. It can learn by itself that it needs to build a base, something like that. And the method that they do it is very interesting. Is that all of these happen using only two models. They use GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. And the model can automatically start the objective, and then they will think what they need to do. They will write a code to execute that task. And if the task requires some of existing skill, it can incorporate it from the skill library. And during the program development process, there may be some errors or some bug in the program. It can receive feedback and improve upon that as well. So we can use this kind of model to help in the game testing. Next one, we can use AI as a part of the game. So first, maybe we can use it as a game engine. So traditionally, we use something like Unity or Unreal Engine to develop a game. But for some game genre, we may not need that kind of thing. We can use LLM to act as our game engine, especially for text-based adventure game. So this kind of game will have the LLM itself driven the whole thing of the game. Let me show you. For example, this one, I asked LLM to become a game engine for text-based adventure game. and tell some of the expectation from the user, and then give it some of the constraint or condition on what this kind of game should be. And it kind of understand that, okay, now it's the game engine. So it welcome user and then after start, till start the game. After that, it generate a very, very interesting story. And since we also ask it to incorporate both the descriptive text and dialogue, it can follow that command. And we can imagine that if we create a very, very nice user interface to wrap around this kind of text generated from the model, that could be the game itself. And another interesting thing is that you can see here that the model asks us to choose. There are 3 choices here. You want to go to the forest, mountain, or the marshland, but we can give user more freedom. And user may choose that, okay, I don't want to go to any of these choice. Maybe I want to go to space. And you can see that the ChatGPT can stay true and can still ask user again, okay, this choice is not exist. So you're gonna choose one of these 3. And it can play on and on and on. Moreover, if you really want, you can also specify a very specific objective here. So it will know when it needs to end. And this is one of an example on the text-based adventure game. So that is how to use ChatGPT as a game engine. Another application that it can be used for game is procedural content generation, or PCG. PCG is a field that try to use various methods to come up with the content during the gaming experience. For example, in Minecraft, they will generate the content at the viewpoint that user gonna reach. So that kind of content is generating dynamically. And this one can be used to generate a very dynamic storyline. So we can, in case of just show you before that, we specifically allow user to choose one of the 3 choice. We may allow user to choose anything, input anything to the model, and the model can adapt to that and make the game more interesting. Finally, the final one is about the game mechanic of features. So in the game now today, one of the very important issue is that it may not be accessible to everyone in terms of a language. Usually it will be developed in English, and the cost of translation is very high. So this kind of new AI tool, it can perform some of the automatic translation and directly modify the model to match the lip to the voice that is speak. And another aspect is personalization. So we can adapt the game to a user behavior that don't have any restriction anymore. However, it's just like many of you have mentioned, there are some of the risks, bias, and ethical consideration. For example, the bias that may exist during the dataset training dataset process, also the alignment process, which is basically fine-tuning. So this is very concerning since the large language model can expand and enlarge and reinforce the bias that already existing. So one of the ways that a lot of companies trying to do nowadays is to make sure that the alignment process reduce this kind of behavior. Another consideration is misuse of this kind of tool. We can see a lot from the deep fake or generate a fake news, something like that. Another one is adversarial attacks. So some people might have a bad intention and try to make the game or basically any application utilizing the LLM well in some aspect. For example, normally the LLM will generate the token, let's say 500 tokens as a response, but the bad actor may maliciously craft some of the prompt to make LM generate more than 500 tokens, which utilize more computational cost, and that could lead to a degradation in performance of the server. Next one is accessibility. Large language model nowadays is very large, just like its name. So it's very hard to run on commodity hardware. There are a lot of effort into this area. For example, quantization is one of that. They try to reduce the precision of the floating point numbers. So it requires less computational performance. And actually, I can show you that I can run Llama 2 here on my machine. This one has been quantized to 6-bit. So I can just, for example, write a story about Llama. And you can see that it requires a little bit of computational spec, but it still can run and generate something like this. But one thing that you may notice here is that the Llama 2 has some of the personality that it overly cautious about generating bad content that may go against the social standard. So this one is another thing that we have to balance between able to follow user instruction or basically have a safeguard for the bad content. And finally, the misinformation. So language model can just return nonsense to us, right? That is hallucination. And some people argue that maybe we should not call it hallucination, but we should call it confabulation. Just like how our human try to confabulate something from our experience, which may not be true. And that is all for the slide that I prepared. So I'm gonna go over here and give you some example. In terms of the commercial side, NVIDIA just announced something called ACE. ACE is an AI tool that can bring life to the AI. And it includes many features that I just tell you. For example, it can interact with user in a way that very dynamic. So this NPC can generate this kind of dialogue in real time. And user can just respond it in any way that the user imagine. And you can see that it automatically match the lip to the dialogue. So that is one of the effort from the commercial side. And as for the academic itself, I already show you this Voyager, right? And actually, our lab also holds a competition. So if you are interested, you can join this one as well. You can design a prompt to ask ChatGPT to generate a game level. So if you are interested, please feel free to check it out. And this one is another example that utilizes multiple generative AI tools. This one uses ChatGPT for generating dialogue and Stable Diffusion to generate a game asset. So let's see. This is a visual novel game. So it's a game that you will read the dialogue and then sometimes it present you with a choice that you can just shoot anything and the game will adjust the storyline according to your choice. So all these dialogues are generated in real time by ChatGPT. And the assets as well is generated by the Stable Diffusion model. But you can see here that sometimes it will still give some nonsense. And this one can be improved using prompt engineering, because prompt is basically conditioned to the language model. So if you have a good prompt, then you can expect that it will give something good. And another effort that kind of like switching entirely is that now currently the Google Bot and Bing AI support multimodal input already. So you can attach an image and ask it to interact with it. So this one, I just asked, is this food safe for people who have diabetes? And this is a text that has no mention about image at all, but I also attached an image of the fried noodle. And it's kind of clever that it can understand that the image is a fried noodle, and fried noodle typically has a high calorie. So it's not recommended for people who have diabetes. And for being AI, it's quite similar. So this one, I just ask, where is this place? And attach image of Fuji-san. So it can understand that, okay, this image is a Mount Fuji and explain it. And you may notice something here that it also search the internet. So this might be one way to incorporate more the newer information to the already trained large language model. Because basically this is the context that you can provide along in the prompt and ask the language model to utilize it and generate a response that incorporating those kind of information. That is kind of like the language model. And on the academic side, we also saw a lot of effort in trying to training the multimodal language model. For example, this one, you can input video along with the text and ask is an accident in the video, something like that, and the language model can explain it. So the idea behind this one is like you try to align the embedding from the visual side and the text side. If you are interested, please feel free to check about this one. And about the misinformation and fake content, there is a recent effort from the business leading by Adobe. They try to introduce this C2PA. So it basically try to inject the logs of the action or modification into the content that has been created starting from the hardware level. So once you take a camera and then take a photo, it will already record all the things that, for example, this one is really captured by a real camera. And then at the software level, if you modify it, for example, through a Photoshop, it also record that action as well. So we saw some effort of industry that try to mitigate the problem of fake information. And another thing that I have mentioned is about prompting. So nowadays, prompt engineer is a very popular job and you can receive a lot of money just by doing it. And there are a lot of ways that you can try to interact with the language model. One of the very popular one right now is React, reasoning and action. So you give the model capability to use tool. If it thinks that it needs to search something on the website, it can just tell the orchestrating program that it requires this kind of information. Please execute this function and return me with the output. So this is the output. And this show one of the ways that the large language model now not only can incorporate a newer, more updated information, it can interact and has some influence to the external world as well. For example, if this function is not a search, but in this is a function that can control a light in the actual room. And if you think that, okay, now the time is, for example, it's a bedtime already, it should turn off the light. It can orchestrating that and make that happen. And you can imagine that this one can incorporating with the auto GPT. So it can deploy multiple LLM and do a very specific part that is specialized in. Yeah, and I think that's all for me. So thank you.
Mhm. That's great. So you hear a different perspective from different panelists. And I guess I would like to point out to actually, I guess, Erwin, Kesturi, and also Suparna, that Pete is a master's student. And he's looking to do PhD. His advisor trying to ask him to stay, of course. But hey, I mean, he's as far as I'm concerned, he's a free agent, right, Pete? So he's a very bright student from our university, and he's been doing very well. And then let's see, perhaps we can do something with his advisor actually, and maybe this is part of the idea having this summer school, having this kind of event, is to bring everybody together, see how we can collaborate and work together. So that's the other thing I bring up Pete as well, because he's got a different perspective. He's got his younger energy and so on. So it's a range. So Erwin and I are sort of the mentors. Then we have Siparna is hardworking and getting work done and putting a lot of, and then we have Kesturi getting that to that stage. Basically, still, I would say, you're an associate professor already, but you're growing fast, but then there's still room to improvement. And then we have Pete here, who's just coming up, and everyone's talking about generative AI, which is basically what I guess the world is fascinated with right now, and also arguing and debating about. So in that sense, I thought this would be an interesting panel to put together to close up actually the summer school, and then yeah, we'll see where we can go from here, really. So why don't I open up the floor, even though it's almost 3 o'clock, but it's okay, because there's a closing ceremony after this until 3:30. So we can stretch it if we want to, but if not, it's okay. So I'll open up the floor to actually the panelists. You can ask questions to anyone, as well as anyone in the audience, in case someone may be interested. They can also pose questions by asking, chatting, or speaking out as well. Anyone like to start with some comments or questions or comments for someone? Okay.
Yeah. Can I go? All right.
Yes, please.
All right. Okay. I have a question for Prof. Siparna regarding the mental health application that you have actually created. All right. The mental health application, right? Is it already in use by the patients?
No, that we have not yet deployed, because our scores are not very high. So you are still getting the RUSE value or the blue scores in the range of 30s or 35s. So basically, we are in dire need of some more amount of data. So we are now creating some more data so that we can somehow improve the this RUSE values or the blue scores of the responses. So
Alright.
that we are now working, we are still working on just to improve the performance, and also other factors like when you are chatting with a mental health person, empathy, these aspects are also important. Like, motivation is one aspect, other aspect is the empathy or the politeness. So these aspects also we are trying to infuse in the responses. Like when the chatbot will generate the responses, it should be motivational, empathetic, and also polite. And also, like, it should always give the positive, like there should not be any kind of negative vibes or the negative mention about in the utterances. So this kind of checkpoints now we are still, we are trying to introduce in the responses. So still it is in the development phase.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Another question will be on the ethical part, right? And the consideration or the approval that you have to get, because will it be considered as medical device because you're interacting with the patients and all that? Will it be considered as
Yes, so yeah, like we took permission from this website from where we crawl the data. So they gave us the permission to build the model. And also our institute's ethical committee's permission we took before starting this research. But yes, before, like in the team, there is a psychiatrist also, like we are collaborating with a psychiatrist. But yes, I think before deployment, we need to have more, more testing, and also real life testing, and also maybe the ethical board permission of the hospitals that we have to take. Like for conducting this research, the theory part, we took our institute's ethical board permission.
All right. Thank you very much. I have one question for Pete regarding open source LLM. So did you use any open source LLM? And if you have used, what are the limitations that you are actually seeing?
Okay. I actually use many open source model, but one of them that I want to try out now is the latest one, the Llama 2. One of the limitation that I already showed you before is that it my guess is like during the alignment process, it tried to make the model overly cautious about respond in a certain topic. So as I showed you before, let me share my screen. That I just asked it to generate a story about llama, which had nothing to do with safety at all. But it responded in a way that, oh, this is a topic that very sensitive and it cannot generate that. So that is one of the limitation. And another thing is that in my understanding, the open source data set that used to train this model is very limited compared to the commercial one that, for example, OpenAI use. So some of the capability might not be possible. For example, I once asked the Llama, the first version, to try to generate a code for a very specific task. It cannot do that. It generates a very generic code that has nothing to do with the task. But once I switch to and try to use the GPT-4, it can give me a code and very detailed one along with a very useful comment and very useful instruction. So that is one of the things. And actually, there is this leaderboard here, OpenLLM leaderboard, and they try to rank the LLM in terms of the capability in various tasks. And as you can see here that even if it performing well, but this number is not matched the commercial one at all. For example, the GPT 3.5, GPT-4 or Claude from the Anthropic. All of those that I just talked about perform and achieve at a level, for example, around 80 to 90. And this one, the best one right now that we have is around 67. So there is still a large gap between open source and commercial one.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you
So
for
Pete,
your
I just
question.
would like to mention one point. So don't you think that token length is also a limitation? Like still it can take 32,000 tokens as input. So like if you want to generate the summary of some large documents, I think still it is a problem. Like if your document size is very large, like especially in the legal domain.
And nowadays there are two kind of solution approach to that problem. The first one is you try to make the model itself able to accept a larger context. And right now, I think the GPT-4 can accept up to 8,000 something tokens, which is not that large compared to the open source one, which I think right now we have the maximum one about 40,000 tokens. But in terms of the application itself in the software development community, what they try to come up is that they try to use this approach, retrieval augmented generation. So you equip the large language model with ability to retrieve relevant information and use it as a part of the context to respond to the task. Basically, you will have a data store that store everything, and the model will think that okay, it needs to retrieve this specific information. It will query the data store, which nowadays mostly will be vector database, and then receive the specific bit of information back and incorporate it as a part of the context or basically the prompt and give the result to the user. So that is one way to overcome the limited context length.
In fact, I was
Thank
going to say that SIG-IR that will open next week has a couple of sessions on augmented retrieval. So yeah, so this is what probably the latest thing is right now. Good.
Actually, we're asked to see if we can bid for SIG-IR as well at some point. So we'll see.
That would be cool. Yes.
Yes. Let me just add quickly, so Peter already is up to date, talk about many things. There's another one that you're probably also aware of. So Google is trying to play their part. So now Google's part has learned to speak. So you can actually understand and speak 40 languages. So this is more and more NLP. So we see that both Kesturi and Siparna, you're very much into NLP. So, and in games, there's more and more NLP involved. And we just, there's a trend in terms of, for example, in Hollywood, in movie making, moving into totally AI. So we had our interns this summer visiting an interesting company that's helping Hollywood generate a lot of these special effects, like right here in Thailand. So including some of the other movies you can see that's opening up. Basically, they're all using AI, and it's all generative AI.
Mm-hmm.
So there's supposed to be a non-disclosure agreement, but actually I did not actually visit it. So I said, I'm not going to sign the NDA because I know a lot of things already did, but the students did, the interns did, and they visited and they were very impressed. So other than that, I can just say, there are a lot of things going on, and all that is thanks to generative AI as well. That's basically what we're moving towards. We cannot really differentiate between, I guess we call it, so AI, I've been trying to say, is augmented intelligence. And from our perspective, we call it a version of cognitive computing. I call it innovative cognitive computing. It's a different way to have it, more human-like, because we're afraid that AI would destroy mankind somehow. So they have to understand human first for us to coexist. So we're the one who's building these things. So we should put these things together so that at least they understand where we're coming from, and that we're not here to just control AI like a pet kind of thing, because we cannot really control it.
Right. Yeah, the
So
developers,
Erwin, what you mentioned earlier about having tutors, that's something that we've been working on, that we had limited success initially. But now with generative AI, we can actually do a lot more. So we are putting that into our, I guess, our e-learning platform as well. We're trying to have like e-tutors, which is basically just generated with specific text for a particular course.
Yeah.
We're doing that I'm sure other people are doing this as well. So if
Yeah.
you're doing that, we'd like to work with you as well, anybody else, because you want to put that into practice, into our courses. And I think we can put something on Keep, right, Erwin? I mean,
Yep.
you offer these MOOC courses,
Yep.
courses with chatbots who are actually
Yeah.
very good TAs.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was planning to do a course just purely generated by AI, in terms of script, in terms of video, in terms of sounds and everything. So we were thinking about doing that. And it's being planned. So we hope to get something out. Yeah.
Actually, our school, one of the lecturers is offering a course on generative AI.
Mhm.
So we are talking about the different generative AI things and showing them how to do, including prompt engineering. So that's going to be a course next semester. Maybe we can see how we can work that into a wider context, having you guys coming to give guest lectures, interacting, and maybe somehow, okay, currently it's going to be offered in Thai, because I'm not the one who's teaching it, but there's some English component, I think, but we'll see how we can work this. So the content itself It's
Yep.
not generated by AI, it's human, but it's talking about what generative AI can do. So
Yep.
whenever you're talking about generative AI creating content, then we have to somehow, scrutinize and make sure that the content is proper and is teaching the right thing and ethically, acceptable and so on and so forth.
Yep. Yeah, so this is in terms of that, ethical issues, plagiarism issues and all that, who gets the credit, acknowledgement, declaration. I think we will begin to crystallize that, because right now it's in the transition. Everybody's like, nobody knows what the some publishers forbid anything, some encourage, and so there is a whole spectrum of things happening. So we're just looking at when all the dust will settle, then we will crystallize our ethical and other thinkings. But right now is good. It's just that we need to think. We need to really have a critical thinking about what we can do. The funny thing is that we don't even know the limitations of these ChatGPT, these large language models yet. I'm amazed by Pete's game generation and mental health things and many other things that we could do, tutoring and many things. And I think this is really a disruptive technology that is going to push us to the next level. So anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Some exciting stuff, very exciting. Yeah.
Well, looking forward to it, and definitely the upcoming ICON-NIB, the International Conference on Neuroinformation Processing by the Asia Pacific Neural Network Society. So we should try and put something together. I think I want to try to see what we can do at ICON-NIB, and also put in some content on this, and trying to get all the members involved in somehow.
Yep.
Another thing actually I've been sort of telling the audience, my students and so on, it's like ChatGPT is a bit like me.
Yeah.
I can talk a lot. It's a lot of knowledge that's distilled, and I'm giving things, but once in a while, it could be considered bullshit. Like very hallucination. It's almost like it's human, right?
Yep.
So it's like the AI is becoming human.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's becoming human.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to do, right? That's cognitive computing.
In some ways, yes. In some way, it does not understand, itself. There's no ego yet, but if there is, I think we're in trouble. Right? I mean, you talk about mental wellness. Mental wellness, you have an ego, you have a super ego, you have an id, you have all these things, right? I mean, computer doesn't have mental health problem, at least right now, but maybe one day they will.
Yes.
For them, maybe the mental illness is related to limited memory and speed. So they'll overheat. So their form of mentality is a little bit different from ours. But hopefully when they get mad, it doesn't destroy mankind.
Yeah. So this is where ethical, AI really comes in. We really need to come up with, sound policy that takes, equality, inclusion, all this thing into consideration. And then not only that, you need to somehow monitor this and to be able to also have an executive branch that will carry out these policies, or else they mean nothing, right? So, yeah, I agree. Yep. So, lots of work ahead of us. That's all I think.
So now, is there any way we can get international collaboration and, more importantly, funding? Now, how are we going to tackle that? Generative AI is not good for the climate in the sense of energy intensive.
Yeah.
So this year, IEEE the robotics competition has a theme on climate change.
Mhm. Yep.
And yet we are demonstrating today with robots that use a lot of battery. So it's sort of going against that theme in a way.
Yeah.
So what can we do? Because climate, Earth, nature, and then generative AI.
Well, build more
Anybody want to
efficient.
chip in?
Yeah,
More efficient? Yeah, green computing, everybody's trying to do that.
exactly. Build more efficient computing machines and yeah, that's my thoughts.
So like quantum, everybody, that's why it's a big in quantum, right?
Yeah.
But it's still a pipe dream into some extent.
Yep.
So maybe we're waiting for some aliens with advanced life form to come along, give us the technology to save Earth.
Well, yeah. Good questions. Jonathan, no answer.
Whoever is God who created us, right, will come and save us, right, Irvin?
That's a thing that they also say about developed countries. They have more fund in terms of coming out with this large language models. So unlike the developing nations, so
Yep.
how about those people or those organizations with limited funds, which we are going to rely solely on open source?
Yeah.
To what extent we can actually reach to the efficiency and effectiveness of the commercialized models. So that's a huge thing to actually look forward and to consider. There is also a limitation, a huge limitation imposed to, I guess, most of us.
Yeah. Yeah, you talk about the digital divide. Well, this is the AI divide, and I think it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
Countries that have and don't have. I know that everybody more or less they probably have access. Even they have mobile phone, they have access. But still, is the penetration, is how you use it. And I think that some studies say America only 1/3 the student are using it. Yeah, I understand, but they have access and they could use it anytime they want, whereas other places don't. They can't. So this is where I think some people could work on this, is to narrowing the gap of this AI divide, and so that's another topic for discussion, I think. Yeah.
Actually, my school is trying to do that. I mean, at least locally. So
Yeah.
we have this digital divide initiative.
Mhm.
Actually, tomorrow, a group of us will be going up to a province just north of us.
Mhm.
So regularly, we sort of donate some equipment, computers, and then so on. And then for next year, we'll probably get robotics outreach. So
Yeah.
this year, I just broadcasting it. So if they can, but they cannot really participate. So we have to think about how maybe we can leverage generative AI somehow. But the hardware, the simulation we can do, we can try and narrow the divide by having everything digital. They can, participate, virtually perhaps.
Mhm.
I mean, perhaps we'll find a role for VR after all, somehow, but you need to have internet access,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So these are still some limitations, but reaching out the outreach, the digital divide aspect, and everyone, I think, is trying to some extent. What I'm concerned with is right now, when you sort of working on this with Hai Chin, we talk about this, was the LLM is on sentiment.
Yeah.
Sentiment to my, more specifically, I mean sentiments of different governments, East, West, Chinese, American.
Mhm.
If we can get them work together,
Mhm.
there's a lot of funds, a lot of resources for everyone. But if there's tension, then there's it's like Ukraine and Russia, right? Somehow, so that kind of thing is a global, I guess, situation that we cannot really do much about, but we can voice collectively and see what we can do and propose something. But
Yep.
yeah, that's what we can hope for is some stability so we can actually grow and reach out and have outreach and so on and so forth.
Very good.
So we have a good representative here, I think. Except we don't have underdeveloped countries in the panel. We at least, I guess India is a little bit below Thailand. Even your population is huge. And then Malaysia is a bit above Thailand in terms of GDP. And Hong Kong is up there with the rest of the world.
Yep.
So we can bridge this, we can somehow form something.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, I'll call for that action anyways.
Yep.
At least I'll try to reach out to the Asia Pacific Neural Network Society members and also trying to see if we can reach out to IEEE members as well.
Good.
Okay, the audience been very quiet, but it's okay, but I think we bring out many points. And I think I'll actually post this video, our panel session online, and then let's see if we can invite some feedback. And we can call for action, what we can do next.
Sounds good.
Sure.
All right. How about a closing statement about generative AI and how it applies to your fields of expertise? I think having taken into everything, good, goods and bad now, and also the hallucination that I'm putting out as well. So if I have everyone just quickly summarize about how generative AI can be applied to your field of expertise, perhaps. Anyone like to start?
Well, I go back to one of my slides, right? Just use generative AI to think with you, not for you. And I think because we still need that critical thinking, And I think they're fabulous tools, but let's don't diminish the capability of what we have too. That's all. Yeah.
Thank you. Other panelists?
Yeah, I
You wanna
feel
talk
that
about-
we cannot stop using it. We cannot stop anyone using it.
Right.
And we have to use it so that we can actually empower the knowledge and the information that we have, or that we can actually gain from this kind of generative AI. But it's about the misusing, or the sharing of data, and in terms of privacy and all that has to be tackled. And developers, right, especially developers, they need to be more cautious and be more responsible when it comes to creating generative AI that actually involve privacy data, highly sensitive data in terms of, and also security reasons as well. So this is the overall that I feel that that we should actually use generative AI, but cautiously.
Thank you.
So for me, this ChatGPT or GPT-4 should be looked at as a product, not as a research. Like Google Translate, people are still working on the machine translation, but they do not compare with the Google translation. So basically, we should continue doing research in the field of generative AI as researchers or as academicians, and we should always consider this ChatGPT, GPT-4 as a product, not as a research, because we really don't know. It's just a black box. We really don't know what they're exactly doing, what is their training data, what is their model. So better to consider them as a product, and we should continue doing good research in the field of generative AI. We can consider these different problem statements which have societal effects, like AI for social good, and similarly generative AI for social good. I think we should not think like there is a stop, like this generative AI will has already ended the research in various domains. So we should continue doing research in this area.
right? In my opinion, I said before that we can use this kind of generative AI for to think in the game, right? For game development and design process, and for the game itself. And for the game development and design process, I think that one we still need some kind of supervision from human in terms of the content that has been generated as well as the process overall. It's not gonna replace us soon, I guess, but it will augment it and make the work more efficient. But for the game itself, by incorporating this kind of model in the game, I think we have to take a very cautious step about that. One thing is that in traditional software development, everything is very precise. We know exactly that this number is what we need. But in the LLM-based development or LLM-based game, it has more stochasticity. So it can sometimes not generate the same response. So if your game byline expect that it will get some format of the response and suddenly the LLM does not generate that kind of format, your whole process gonna fail if you don't have some kind of measure for that thing. And this does not only apply to the game, but basically any application that utilizing the large language model. That's my view.
Actually, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm on two devices. One device, the battery died. I'm switched to with different backgrounds now. Yeah. So let me just sum up a little bit. So we talk about generative AI is very much a black box. So the explainable AI trend is definitely still here. We need to be able to explain some things. We can ask it to summarize and explain to us how it's doing it. And actually, if you ask that kind of prompt, it will give you some details. So that part is actually somewhat explainable, but you have no way of verifying what it generates is actually correct or not. So, but explainable AI is also necessary for sure. And what Pete just mentioned, actually, it's sort of repeating in a sense, I think. So it's like, when I say it's sort of like I am almost like a ChatGPT in the sense that sometimes I say things that I believe is correct, but then it's like a lecture. It's like real life. When you catch a professor teaching, sometimes the students say, "Oh, this is there's a mistake here." That's because we just, due to whatever circumstances, is stochastic to the randomness. We do make mistakes writing or talking. And it's good for the students to actually pick it up and you try to correct us. That's what we want. So in a sense, with ChatGPT being the teacher now, kind of, because it consumes all the knowledge that we have generated. And now we are the student trying to correct it. So in a way, try to put this in an analogy. I'm not sure if it's proper or not, but we can think about it that way. So there's, anyhow, the other thing is with ChatGPT and with human, when we talked about earlier about the aging society, is when it comes to the dementia aspect. So for human, that's real. In the sense that when you get to a certain age, biologically, something doesn't work the same, that we're still not able to fix yet. So what that means is the brain cells starts to go, you can say, and then you might start hallucinating more and more, in the sense that you said, "Oh, I did this," but then actually you never done it. So in that sense, it's sort of like if you can think about ChatGPT or this generative AI doing something similar, because something, overheating or lost memory or whatever along that line. So in that sense, we have to question it. And then the question is, what do we do? How do we do that? And the work on the depression, for example, this is very real because we all experience students who become depressed and might even, commit suicide at our institutions, for example, different institutions. We have seen that, and we have seen other aspects of it. So in that sense, you can also see with generative AI or development in the sense that we can monitor the behavior of students when they're talking. That's the thing we're also working on. So it's a chat bot, but then does the person chat differently on a different day? Can you tell the sentiment, not just the context of the environment, but actually in a specific session? Is that being tracked? So of course there's privacy issues, but then of course everything can be done on the device, so-called. So in that sense, we have to make sure that the large language model somehow has to fit at the edge, which is not possible right now. So in terms of research, there's a lot of room for research, go in that direction. So anyways, I think it's been a very, very good discussion. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for your input. And I hope we put out some, I guess, LLM ChatGPT kind of wisdom for everyone to consider and question as well, not just accepting what we say. And with the different generations, we have different, I guess, beliefs and foundation, and so on and so forth. So let me just stop in that. I think it's right at 3:30. This is actually serve as a closing as well. And just one last thing. So I guess we'll close this. And one last thing is that as a continuation, perhaps I can post to everyone who registered for DLI 7. We actually, in our university, we're hosting a neuroscience lab series talk coming Monday. It's sort of like not the same, but then the series of talk. So ChatGPT, neuroscience in a way ties in some way. I can post that to see if anyone's interested. So it's just on Monday morning here. So it fits maybe not in Europe, but in North America is fine as well. All right, thank you very much. Let's give a big hand to all the panelists.
Jonathan,
And yes,
why don't you take a group photo?
yes, please. I'm on my mobile phone. Please take a good photo for everyone.
I mean, you,
I'm
oh,
on
you
my mobile
can't.
phone. Yeah,
Oh,
my
you-
battery is dead. I have to change room and then my battery is dead. But I can go back to the other room. But yeah, you can take a group photo now. I'm here.
Can everybody turn on their video? I don't know, there are many others that are not on. I could fit 25 people. I think that's all 16
That's all
people.
we have. I'm not sure everyone can actually turn on their
Yeah.
camera, but yeah, everyone, please do turn on your camera if you're able to, so
Yes,
we can take a picture.
yes, that would be good, but okay. Okay, I'll take a photo and then I'll send it to you. How's that?
Okay, great.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I took a screenshot. I'll send it to you, Jonathan. I'll do another
Great,
one.
thank you.
Okay, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I'll send both of them to you. Okay,
Great,
Jonathan.
thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
Yeah.
you.
We'll be in touch
Yeah,
and see some of your icon nip and perhaps even Monday with some of you, especially the
Okay.
local participants.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. We'll be in
Yeah,
touch.
bye bye. Thanks
We're
a lot.
good.
Yeah,
Great weekend.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes.